Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sales Mindset TV show. I'm here with Steve Knapp.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
Okay, today we are going to be talking about how to identify and convert your ideal prospects.
Yeah, we all want that, don't we?
We do. We'd love to just convert our ideal prospects and stop wasting time on, and I've heard you say this before, suspects.
Yeah, totally.
So what is the difference between a suspect and a prospect?
Yeah, I mean this message is, for me, something that I've sort of really experienced over the years, and people still get surprised when I describe the difference. But you'll go, of course, and I get that. But the challenge is, do you really behave like that and act like that? So let me go in to answer your question. There's a universe out there which are your suspects. You know, everybody wants to buy from you, don't they? Everybody must want what you have to sell and have to offer. So everybody is a prospect, right? No, not at all. Because actually, your sales process really only begins when you've identified who are your prospects, and that's what this TV show is about. And there is a significant difference between a suspect and a prospect, not only in terms of the amount of time you invest and the focus of your time, because if you're dealing with a universe of people, suspects, you're really not focused. You're really not targeting your ideal prospect. So if we start to think a bit more about what is a prospect versus a suspect, right? That might help. You've seen the sales process, sales funnels most people use, and the first step is suspect, second step is prospect. The difference between the two is three things. The first one is a prospect wants your product. They want your product or your service. They actually have either researched you or they've connected with you some way, but they've demonstrated they want or need your product or service. That's the first thing. The second thing is they've actually got the money. They're able...
That's an important fact.
All of that, right? They're actually able to afford what it is you're selling. So all of a sudden, your universe of suspects is being funneled down. And then the third one, which is sometimes the one in deals we forget, a decision maker isn't necessarily just one person. So the third one is that they've got the authority to spend that money that they have. So if you put all of those three things together and you have a list of people, a list of companies that want or need your product or service, have the available money, and are able to spend that money, they have the authority to spend that money, then you have a list of prospects.
But as mentioned, everyone starts off as a suspect. So how long should we be spending on these people to know they are prospects? We get told that people take a multiple amount of touches before they convert.
Yeah.
So, and everyone's kind of different. So how long do you give them before you kind of say they're not going to convert?
Yeah, and there is a little bit of experience and gut feeling that goes on here, right? I mean, if the answer is no to each of those things, drop them.
Yeah.
Right? I've spent a lot of my career talking to salespeople and sales managers, and what I do tend to see is they hold on to suspects far too long because the value they perceive that suspect can bring them is huge compared to the target that they're trying to achieve, right? So there's a bit of, don't even start counting the value of a suspect in your financial models until you've established them as a prospect. Now, I know that doesn't answer your question on time, but it certainly is one layer that you might want to think about that helps you distinguish how quickly you jettison a suspect versus a prospect.
Okay, well, let's break that down a little bit more then. When you talk about being able to afford it and being the right person to pay for it, should you be talking about your price up front then in order to know if they can afford it? A lot of times you spend ages going for the quotes and understanding what they want, and then you send a quote over and they're like, oh, we can't afford it. Should you be flipping that? Should you be talking about your price first to see if they'll convert?
Well, I mean, there is some research that says, virtually, I think it's 70+% of buyers, 62% of buyers, excuse me, it's just come to me. That's why I was looking back in my head. I just remembered it. 62% of buyers actually want you to mention price. They want you to mention price on the first connection. My advice is try to avoid that, because actually offering price to a prospect is almost backing you down into an alley. You're almost stopping yourself being able to create value that you can monetize. So why does 62% of buyers want you to do that? Well, they want you to do that because they want to back you down the alley, right? So your job as the seller is to keep that conversation going as long as possible with your ideal prospect. But you're building value. You're building your value to them. And the value you offer your prospect should therefore reflect back into your price. Now, what I'm not saying is if your product is out there in the market at £50, that you realise it's solving a massive problem that you charge £5,000 for it, right? You've still got to be realistic in the confines of what your product is. But what you're not going to do is discount from your £50 if you're adding the value. So that's the really important part. The buyer will try to drive you down that alley. Your job is to try and stay away from that for as long as you can by establishing more and more reasons that your product or your service adds value. And then when you add that value, you can either go with a price that's relevant to that value, or confident that your book price is a fair price and you should get that.
And this is all we're trying to find out if they've got those three things, can afford it, and if the right buyer. So I guess a lot of it to begin with is kind of testing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is.
You try and understand who those people are, who that category is.
Yeah. So if you're going to the buyer and you're looking for answers to those three questions, and they're struggling to answer them, it's going to be very difficult for you to really for them to really explain to you the value that you can add, right? Because they don't own the purchase. They don't own the reason they're buying. Therefore, sometimes your ideal prospect isn't your initial contact. It's somebody that you need to network through the business with, that actually is maybe a business owner or a financial director or a manufacturing manager or health and safety manager, somebody that owns the problem, that can articulate the value that you can add. And then once you've got that information, you can start building the right conversations with the decision maker, the purchaser, and you can actually then start adding and thinking about your price.
So a good way to start this off would be to go through your client list and see who the people are that's currently buying from you.
Oh yeah, bang on.
And that way you can.
I mean, that is a pearl of wisdom. That is a absolute nugget, right? So
job is done.
Yeah, well done. But no, I mean, it's fun. It really isn't that much of a jump to realise that your ideal clients, your ideal prospects, are probably very similarly matched to your great clients at the moment, right? So those clients that you offer enormous value, that are on retainers, are regulars, are people that keep coming back, people like them are the people that are your ideal prospects. Absolutely right.
And I'm speculating now, but if you are a startup business, you're brand new, you can look at your competitors and see who their audience is, who their customers are, and then you'll get a good understanding of your target market as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always indicators there, right? So we've talked before about networking. We've talked before about your business strategy. I mean, your business strategy should probably have that kind of information in it. But absolutely, Chris. If you're looking to identify who is your ideal prospect, then look who your biggest competitor is attracting. You know, and you can see that a lot on social, on LinkedIn as an example. You could probably see that quite quickly and quite easily.
And then quickly you'll understand who's target and those that are going to come from suspects to prospects the quickest.
So, and don't lose that one again. Your universe is not a list of prospects. Your prospects are people that, I'll say it again, they have a need for your product or your service, they have the budget to spend, and they have the authority to spend it.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's pretty much all we got time for this week. We hope that's give you some good nuggets of information that you can take away and start looking at how to turn suspects into prospects and how to quickly get rid of those suspects that are never going to convert.
Yep, totally.
If you've got any questions, do drop them in the comments or do message Steve. I know he loves to speak to as many people as possible, so let's bombard him with as many messages as we can possibly do so. We are going to be back next week, and next week we're actually talking about taking accountability of your self-development.
Ah, good.
Yeah?
Good.
So that's going to be great. So we're going to go and do some self-development now on what we should be talking about next week. But I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great week, everyone.
See you later. Bye.